Hi, and I worked with Sam this past spring, and the result was I got into USC Marshall with a 130,000 full fellowship.
Yes. Thank you very, very much for joining me in a nice interview to talk about your experience applying for business school. You had one of the most interesting experiences of the applicants I've worked with this season. So I really, really wanted to hear your thoughts on how the application process went, how it was working together, where you've ended up, what your takeaways from the process are, so that other people following in your footsteps might be able to take away some useful advice.
I had already gone through most of the application process before meeting with you, as you know, and I had had relative success considering it was the year 2020. I had interviewed or been waitlisted at 8 top 15 schools, but had no acceptances. So I was, as you can imagine, pretty frustrated, but also strangely hopeful. So I was in this like weird ball of like, not trying to get my hopes up too much, but then not trying to give up completely. And I remember the night before I reached out to Sam, I told myself, I'm taking myself off all the wait lists. I can't take it anymore. I've been waitlisted for over 3 months at all these schools that I thought I would get into.
You still had a couple of outstanding applications that you hadn't heard back from. And one of them was USC Marshall. And so can you talk about the preparation that you went through building up to that interview? How we had a mock together and we were talking about your motivation and what you wanted to do. And so can you talk a little bit about how you pieced together your profile and your motivation going into that interview?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, you did a great job with me. I mean, I was just so stubborn. I mean, this is like, we're talking April of the same year that I applied to schools round one. So, I mean, I've been in this process for almost 9 months, interviewing off and on for, 6 months or whatever. And, and I had also started preparing to apply to schools 2 years prior. So, I mean, we're talking like a long, long haul, and I was burnt out and I was feeling like a snail. And, and we did the mock interview and I had to get moving. And I remember that my mock interview with you is not nearly as good as my real interview. And I realized after my mock interview, like, okay, I can't do that when I apply. And you helped me kind of point out, the improvement points and what to speak about and what not to go on about. So that was really fun. I hadn't had that for any of my other interviews.
Can you talk a little bit, Soph, about how we work together? Because I understand this is different to some of the preparation you did going into the process. How we work together in terms of our communication. You are obviously based on the west coast of the US, and I am in Europe. How did that work out?
There's so many times that I showed you something, like I showed you one of my essays, and I'm watching you read it, and you're. And your facial expressions, your facial expressions say so much more than if you had like thought, because some of those reactions you're not even aware of as you have them. And maybe if you were to like write a note, you wouldn't write anything or you wouldn't write in detail, but I can see you go, ooh, or oh. Like, oh wow, that's impressive, or oh yeah. So yeah, I think it's super, super important, especially with essay review, to see the person reading your essay and to get those reactions live, even if it might be a little bit intimidating to watch them do it.
What would be your advice to someone who's considering launching into this process, doesn't really know where to start, and is a little bit intimidated by it?
There's a lot of talk on the internet of, oh, this school isn't quite as good as this school, and you can just get yourself like tossed and turned like tennis ball in a dryer if you keep looking at those rankings and comparing yourself to other people. The farther into like the interviews and wait lists and now acceptance I've gotten in, like the ranking has mattered less. Like I don't think doesn't matter at all, but it just matters less to my personal happiness.
Can you talk a little bit about the fellowship, how much it's worth, what it's covering, what you had to do to apply for it?
So if you're a woman and you apply to a Forte member school, you were automatically considered for a Forte Fellowship, regardless of whether you were in Forte or member of Forte before you applied. So all you have to do is submit your application and you're automatically considered. You can also join Forte and it'll give you a huge discount on applying to Forte member schools. It's like $600 or to apply to, I think, 6 schools versus, $250 a pop. So that's really convenient if you have the foresight to apply to Forte the year before you plan on applying, because it's a 9-month program leading up to round 1.
So thank you very, very much for your time today. Really, really appreciate it. And look, best of luck with your MBA and your finding housing in LA, as you touched on. And I can't wait to hear your updates. And once again, massive congratulations.
Thank you so much, Sam.
And can I get a high five?
Man, I missed so many great opportunities for more metaphors, though.